Hi everyone, I'm Hannah. Oh, let me start Instagram too. Hi everyone, I'm Hannah and I am going to do a quick yoga demonstration for tight hips. And I want to tell you guys a little bit about my online yoga business real quick. So I run SunBloom Yoga. I'm a certified yoga teacher. Again, my name is Hannah and I focus on moms and families. So some of these poses I will offer some prenatal, postpartum modifications. And if you want to learn more about prenatal and postpartum modifications, there's some resources on my website. I'm not a prenatal certified teacher. I simply offer prenatal modifications. So let's get started, and definitely check my website, sunbloomyoga.com. I have lots of yoga practices queued up and lots of other programs. So definitely check me out over there. All right, let's get started. So you can grab some blocks. I have a bolster. I also have water. It is, if you're feeling tight and sore in any area of your body, it can be really helpful to stay hydrated, to help to relieve those muscle groups that are not happy with you. So let's begin today with some lunge poses. So we're going to start in tabletop position. So as you inhale, press the right heel out behind you. As you exhale, bring the knee into the chest and then walk the foot forward between the hands. We want to work to get the knees stacked over the ankle. So that means if you are too close, then your knee is going to go out over the ankle. We do not want this. We want to scoot the ankle out so that you have a 90-degree angle here on the knee. You can grab your blocks and place your hands on the blocks around the knee, so framing the front foot with the blocks. So what we're working on is keeping the hips square to the top of the mat and then pulling the front hip back into the socket while pushing the opposite hip, which is your left hip, forward so that your hips are square to the top of the mat. So what you may feel here, you may feel some stretching sensation in the quadriceps and the front of the hip. We're also working on the piriformis on the left side and the psoas muscle, which these muscles tend to get tight when we sit for a long time, or conversely, if we stand for a long time, we can also get what we call piriformis syndrome. So your piriformis is a muscle that connects your sacroiliac joint to your iliopsoas, the big hip muscle, or the big hip bone, rather. So your piriformis is back here in your lower back sacral area, and it has your sciatic nerve running through it. And when it gets inflamed, the sciatic nerve often becomes irritated. So we're working on creating more space in the hip and the piriformis muscle, as well as the psoas, which is a muscle that runs on the inside, the interior side of the spine, and it goes all the way down to the interior beginning of your femur bone. So it's like inside of your big hip bones. All right, so as you exhale, move your hips back, straighten that front knee, and walk the hands back so that they are framing the knee. And if you're feeling pretty tight, you can come up on the highest setting of your blocks, or even place the hands just right on the thigh. What we're looking for is a nice tall spine, so creating a flat back. Draw the navel in. So then we're going to hinge forward to the point where you feel a nice stretch in this piriformis area back here, the lower back. So if you feel a little bit of a stretch, you can just hang out right here, breathing. You may also feel a stretch in the hamstring. So something to note is when you have tight hips, that often means that your hips are out of balance because you have been in hip flexion, which is where, like when you're seated, the hip muscles stay really tight, and then the glutes become weakened. So we want to make sure that we begin to strengthen the glutes and stretch the hip flexor muscles. So that we do that by practicing extension in the hips, which the low lunge is a form of extension. We are actually in hip flexion right now as we're hinging forward. So let's go ahead and walk our blocks back forward, bending that front knee, again coming to that low lunge, and then we're going to come back into tabletop position. So place the hands down on the ground. You can move the blocks out of the way. So let's go ahead and shake out the hips just a little bit, maybe moving side to side. You can practice some cat-cows. Just kind of shaking out the work we just did here. And then what we're going to do is begin to inhale and extend through that left heel. So the point of extending the leg behind us, number one is to build strength in the leg. And so you may feel your glutes are nice and active here. Your quads are active. Your calf muscle is active. And you'll also want to draw your belly button into your spine, which activates the core muscles. So we're working on strengthening the glute muscles, which become out of balance or weakened when we are sitting too much in our lives. So as you exhale, squeeze the knee in, round the upper back so that the nose comes towards the knee. And then begin to walk that foot between the hands. So additionally, if you are pregnant, you can take a little bit more space on this low lunge by heel toeing the foot out to the edge of the mat, and then you bring your hand inside of the foot. Then you can take that low lunge, but the heel is out, so you have a little bit wider of a base underneath you. This just gives you more space for your belly, and it can feel pretty good. But if you do this pose, make sure you are keeping that front foot nice and active and working to keep the knee directly over the ankle. You're not rolling the knee in or out. You're keeping it stacked directly over the ankle. Now I'm going to take my sock off here. Just feeling a little bit unsupported with the sock on. So I heel-toed my foot back into the center. I grabbed my blocks, and now I'm sinking the back hip forward. I'm looking for that stretch in the front of the hip flexor right here. And if this feels uncomfortable, you can move in and out. If you're pregnant or postpartum, you want to make sure you're not over-exerting yourself or over-stretching, because overstretching can lead to injury in pregnancy. So a few things to note: pressing into the heel, drawing the navel in, rolling the shoulders down and back, nice long line with the spine, and then pulling that left hip into the hip socket and pushing that right hip forward, really trying to keep the hips nice and square to the top of the mat so you're not twisting open or closed, but you're staying really nice and even here. All right, let's breathe. as you're ready, exhale, move the hips back. Walk the hands back in line with the knee, maybe bringing your blocks onto the highest level. If you need to take a little more space, you can shift that front heel forward just a little bit. So working on creating a nice long line with the spine. If you need to come up, place the hand on the leg. You can do so here. Nice long line. Draw the navel in, and then exhale to hinge forward. We're looking for a sensation in the hamstring as well as maybe in that piriformis area as well. Let's breathe. For a restorative practice, we want to hold the pose for a little bit longer, so I like to aim for 5 to 8 deep breath cycles. And then as you're ready, as you complete, you can begin to walk the hands forward and sinking down into that low lunge for a moment. And then moving the blocks out of the way and bringing the left foot back in line with the right, coming into tabletop position. You can shake the hips out. The next practice we're going to do is cat-cow, and then we're going to add some elements onto it. So as you inhale, opening through the front chest body, so you roll your shoulders open, which means you spread the collarbones, broadening the collarbones. And you may feel your shoulder blades squeezing together, keeping your belly button drawn in, so nice active core, especially if you are pregnant or recently postpartum. You want to be working to build that core strength back. As you exhale, round through the spine, drop the forehead towards the floor, chin tucks into the chest, maybe the hips move back halfway. You can bend the elbows, really spreading through the palms, so gripping onto the floor. Inhale, looking forward, open. Exhale, rounding. 3 more, inhale. Exhale, round. 2 more, inhale, forward, open. Broaden the collarbones. Exhale. Round. Last one, inhale. Exhale, rounding. Now this time, we're going to walk the hands forward about one hand distance. So what we're going to do is we're going to, on the inhale, come into our cobra pose. So if you are pregnant, I would avoid this cobra pose as it can overstretch the abdomen. What you can do is you can simply do what we were just doing. Inhale, open, and then exhale, coming into wide-legged child's pose. So as you inhale, if you're not pregnant or postpartum, you can inhale, coming into your cobra pose. And then exhale, sinking the hips back, child's pose. Inhale, cobra. So what we're doing is we're moving the hips and the shoulders through their full range of motion. And by extension, we're also working on the spine. So on inhale, we're coming into cobra pose, which is hip extension in the hips. And then as we exhale, we're coming into child's pose, which is hip flexion. Inhale forward. Exhale, rounding back. We're working the entire kinetic chain. Inhale forward. Exhale back. So let's take a moment here in child's pose and just rest for a moment. You can place one hand on top of the other and rest the forehead on the wrist. Can you feel your heartbeat? Notice your breath. No need to change it, just notice. Noticing any sensation within the body, allowing it to be as it is, just notice. Then on your inhale, coming forward, coming down onto the belly. Now, if you are pregnant, I will show you a modification for this, so if you're pregnant, you can maybe just sit up and watch, and then I'll show you the modification. But if you're not pregnant, you can come onto the belly. We're gonna work on building some strength in the glutes, as well as creating more range of motion in the hips. So for those of you who are pregnant, what I would recommend is finding a wall and doing exactly what we're doing, just placing no weight on the torso. So you're doing it, but holding your body weight on your feet, and the hands can touch the wall. And we're going to inhale, bringing the hands up and down. We're going to move the legs out and in. So you'll just be working on one leg, and then you can transfer onto the other leg. Kind of like doing slow jumping jacks. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to move my mat just a bit so that I have a little bit more space to work with. So I'm going to come down onto my belly, taking a quick drink. All right. So coming into cobra pose first. Let's work on broadening through the collarbones, pressing the pubic bone down into the mat. Noticing what you feel in your body here. Keeping the chin level to the ground, so it's not lifting up like a skyrocket or tucking down. It's right there in the middle, neutral. Keeping the breath flowing, really working on creating space in the upper chest here. And then what you can do, you can begin to bend through the right knee. You can flex and extend the toes. So we're working on range of motion here. And then drop that right heel down, and then inhale, left heel up. Pointing and flexing. And we're working on squeezing the inner thighs towards one another. Now, if you have a strap, that's something you could wrap around your ankle using one hand or the other. And then drop that left foot back down to the ground. Maybe rock the heels side to side just a little bit. All right, now coming down onto the forehead, swing the hands next to the hips. The palms can face down. So on your inhale, roll the shoulders open, lift the forehead, looking forward, keep the chin neutral. You can also lift the feet off the ground, so pressing the heels backwards as if you're like standing on the air behind you. Another option, so you can either stay right here and just work on creating strength and balance in your core, really squeezing the pelvic floor muscles and the belly button, Or you can create a little flow. So as you inhale, a slow jumping jack. The hands can be a few inches off the ground, or the fingertips can just glide on the ground. So inhaling your hands and legs out, exhaling back. If you are using the wall, remembering you can just do one leg at a time, just remembering to switch halfway through. So we're about halfway now. So as you inhale, let's do 3 more from here. 1, 2, 3. Placing the hands below or placing the elbows below the shoulders rather. We're gonna come back into our cat-cow. So we did a lot of like work on opening. So we want to make sure that we balance that out with our cat-cow. So inhaling, exhaling, rounding, move the hips back. Inhale. Exhale, move the hips back. Then the elbows, forehead comes towards the ground. Inhale forward, open, exhale, rounding. Let's do one more. Inhale. Exhale. This time, nice wide knees here. Toes come to a touch. Coming into your child's pose. Let's take a moment for breath. Looking forward, coming into tabletop position. I have 2 more exercises for you guys before we finish up here. So first we'll tuck the toes and lift the hips up, coming into downward facing dog. Spread through the palms, really gripping with the fingertips. Bend the knees. Begin to twist the hips side to side by bending and straightening each knee. You can look under each armpit. And then coming to center, really keep the knees bent here, especially if you have tight hips. And then finding your right heel, press it up to the sky. You can always do this from tabletop if this feels too intense. And then what we're going to do is bend the knee, and then just simply roll the knee in circles. Taking about 3 to 5 rounds of breath. Moving with control. And then dropping the heel down. Come onto the knees for a second. Stretching the arms. Maybe take the pressure off the wrists, roll the wrists for a second. And we're going to come back onto our downward facing dog and do that exercise on the left side. So as you inhale, lift the hips up. Lift the left heel up to the sky. Bend the knee and then begin to row the knee in some circles. 3 to 5 breaths here. Whew. Bringing the knees back down to the earth. Coming into your child's pose. So if you're expecting mama, you can do this child's pose with us. You can also do that downward facing dog with us, or do it from tabletop, or you have the option of doing the exact same thing, but standing with your hands on the wall to take a little bit of pressure off. So the last exercise we're going to do is Malasana prayer squat or yogi squat. So if you're in child's pose, lifting up onto your knees, begin to take one heel out wide, the toes are pointing out at an angle, and then the other coming into this little froggy squat. So if you have tight hips, you may want to stay up on the toes. You can also take 1 or 2 blocks and place them under the sacrum to give yourself a little seat. You can walk the feet out a little bit. You can find your way to having your elbows inside the knees. So what we're going to do is press the elbows out, push the knees in. So what this does is it begins to create more strength in the inner thighs and the groin area, as well as the glutes. We want to really work to keep a nice long line with the spine. Again, rolling the shoulders down and back, broadening through the collarbones, creating an open heart here, open chest. So there's a lot of work going on here. The belly button draws in. So we're working on core strength as well as inner hip flexibility and all of that. All right, mamas, let's breathe. So you can do this if you are pregnant, and if you are postpartum, you can also work on this pose. You can also integrate Kegels into this pose if you need to work on pelvic floor strength. This pose is excellent for helping new moms prepare for labor. Another option, if this Malasana prayer squat is feeling like too much for you today, you can also sit on your sits bones and look. You can work on cobbler's pose. So what that looks like is you can be sitting on blocks or a block, or you can simply be sitting on the floor, whichever, and then placing the soles of the feet together, pressing into the feet so the legs are nice and active. You can also have your blocks under your knees just to give yourself some support. I'm going to come down off my blocks because I feel a little unstable. So you can grab onto the knees, the shins, or wrap the hands around the feet. You can also, like I said, place the blocks under your knees for some support. This is especially good for the restorative version of this pose, so you can just allow your body to relax into this pose and not work so actively here. It's also good for expecting moms who don't want to overstretch. So wherever you are, sit up nice and tall. See if you can draw the shoulders down the back. If you can't, then come out just a little bit and just really work on creating that open space, long line with the spine, and active core. I think I've said that like 30 times. So you can just sit here. Maybe you hinge forward slightly and then come out. You can even have the hands behind you. Lots of options with this pose. If it's in your practice, you can round forward, bring the forehead towards the toes. So all of those poses can help with tight hips, piriformis syndrome, and tight psoas muscles. So I would recommend practicing that 3 times a week or more if you can. If you can do it every day, that's awesome too. And if you want some more resources or help with your practice, feel free to reach out to me at sunbloomyoga.com. You can find the contact form on the top of the screen and send me an email, and I'd be happy to reach out to you and set up an appointment where we can talk about your yoga goals and how I can help you with that. So namaste, everyone. Thanks for joining me. Bye-bye.